Happy Thursday, everyone. I am Tiffany Serbus-Gustaveson, a digital strategist with BWG Connect, and we are a network and knowledge sharing group. We stay on top of the latest trends, challenges, whatever is shaping the digital landscape. We want to talk about it. We will do hundreds of these webinars this year due to the increase in demand to better understand the digital space. And we will do at least 100 in-person small format dinners. So if you happen to live in a tier 1 city in the US, feel free to check out our website, bwgconnect.com, or feel free to reach out to myself or any of my teammates. We would love to send you an invite. These dinners are typically 15 to 20 people having a discussion around a certain digital topic, and it's always a fantastic time. We spend the majority of our time talking to brands. That's how we stay on top of the latest trends. I'd love to have a conversation with you, so feel free to send me an email at Tiffany, Tiffany, at bwgconnect.com, and we can get some time on the calendar. It's from these conversations we generate the topic ideas we know people want to learn about, and it's also where we gain our resident experts, such as Gigi, who's with us today. Anybody that we asked to teach the collective community has come highly recommended from multiple brands within the network. So if you're ever in need of any recommendations within the digital space, please don't hesitate to reach out. We have a short list of the best, and we would love to provide that information to you. A few housekeeping items before we get started. We want this to be fun, educational, and conversational. Drop the questions and the comments into the chat or the Q&A as we move along. And we started here a few minutes after the hour. Rest assured, we will wrap up before the end of the hour to give you ample time to wherever you need to go next. So with that, let's kick it off and start to talk about understanding Amazon and streaming TV ads, testing and improving ROI. The team at Gigi are awesome partners and friends of the BWG community. So I will kick it over to you, Gloria. If you could give an introduction on yourself, that would be awesome. And then we can jump right in. And thank you all for joining.
Yeah, thank you, Tiffany. Yeah, so I'm Gloria Steiner. I'm the head of product at Gigi. And in my previous life, I was actually at Perpetua, which is morphed into Flywheel, Omnicom, et cetera, and started a new venture at Gigi. And I'm really excited to be here because we are solving one of the biggest problems, which is measuring streaming TV ads. It's very hard to do, and we're doing that with Amazon Marketing Cloud, first-party data collaborations, all these amazing things. And I am just so happy to be on board this incredible journey at Gigi.
That is awesome. Questions, comments, put into the chat or the Q&A. I'm sure there will be some because this is a meaty topic. I mean, there's a lot to go through here, and incrementality testing has been a buzzword we've been hearing more about. So to be able to know, like, what does that exactly mean and how do I do it right is going to be super exciting. So definitely looking forward to it.
Awesome. You want me to just dive in?
Let's do it.
All right. So as you said, it is a bit of a buzzword. Just see it working. And that's why I kind of want to start off with this great quote. It's actually from the VP of Retail Media at Sky, Kevin Weiss. And I like this quote a lot because a lot of people are saying they're doing incrementality, and everyone has their own definition. So it's really hard to understand what it actually is and what it actually means. And about a year ago, I actually wanted to implement incrementality in my previous job. It didn't flow through, but because so many brands are saying, oh, great, but is this incremental to my business? And so I really dug deep and understood, okay, what's a true incrementality test and how do we actually measure it? And as I got down this rabbit hole, I then began to understand that the definition is just so widely adopted in many different ways. And this quote basically says incrementality is very easy to do if you have a subjective opinion of it. But it's almost impossible to do if you don't have the right team, the right data science rigor, et cetera, et cetera. So just to say that, if you're doing it and it's really easy, you're probably not doing it correctly. And that's what I really want to share today, and how to do it correctly. So I'm going to go into a little bit more about the current state of incrementality testing and how it's riddled of this subjective opinion. Now, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I read a lot on LinkedIn. So I got 5 kind of quotes that made me do these emoji faces, basically. And I wanted to go through them one by one and say what the current state of it is, and then what it actually means. So looking at the first one here, incremental return on ad spend, ROS. This is a very important metric to measure. But I found on LinkedIn that someone posted new to brand ad attributed sales divided by ad spend. That's not what it is, unfortunately. That is just your new to brand acquisition. That is attributing new to brand sales to your spend. What it actually is revenue from the experimental group minus the control group divided by ad spend on the experimental group of people who saw the ads. That is your incremental return on ad spend from people who saw the ads versus didn't see the ads. And I'll go really deep into what experimental and control is a little bit later. The second one here, incrementality equals new to channel customers, new to brand customers, new subscriptions. No, it actually means incrementality equals revenue from users who wouldn't have purchased without seeing the ad. That is incremental revenue. The other, on the other side, is attribution. You're attributing all these new to brand or new to channel things, but you're not actually seeing if it's incremental to your business. This is a great one that I got from a tool provider. They released an IROAS dashboard, and it's this big mouthful, leverages best-in-class machine learning combined with dozens of inputs, data sources, multiple advanced data models, Too complicated. Incrementality should be something very, very straightforward. And if you're going with a tool provider and they're saying they're providing incrementality, it just be something, it's a single metric, which is calculated using data science-backed incrementality tests that are leveraging holdout groups. It's very simple. So make sure that you are asking your tool provider how they're actually measuring their IROAS and the definition of their incrementality. Second to last year's incrementality can now be measured using AMC. So AMC is a big hot topic, Amazon Marketing Cloud, first-party data from Amazon. And people are saying that you can measure incrementality with AMC now. Unfortunately, you can't only do it with AMC. It can absolutely help to measure incrementality because of the data, the richness of the data and collaborations available. But you can't only do it with AMC, but you can do it with other sources within the Amazon sphere. And then lastly, the one that makes me a little bit sad is because the industry will not ever have a single standard definition of incrementality, it's almost sort of not worth chasing a singular metric. Well, I think you should chase that singular metric. There is one out there. There is only one way to measure incrementality via incrementality tests, which are standardized methods across the industry. All right.
Very well put together. This is great.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to kind of really make the point that there's just so much confusion of what incrementality really means and making sure that brands are understanding and testing their tool providers or if they want to start incrementality testing, they really know what they're going to get into. So now I'll go into what does it actually look like? What does a true incrementality test look like? And this is a little bit of jargon too from the Kroger data science leader, but basically you need media teams and sophisticated tools capable of rapidly and repeatedly executing randomized control trials and other testing methodologies. Okay, I'm going to break this down. True incrementality testing consists of what you see, a control group and an experimental group. The control group does not see the ads. The experimental group does see the ads. You're running this test over a certain period of time, and you're going to measure the difference of the revenue in each group. And hopefully there's a very large lift in the experimental group of who did see the ads. And it's a statistical method that you run, and you can see if the test is actually statistically significant or insignificant. If it's insignificant, you might not have had enough budget, or the groups weren't assigned correctly. But if it's statistically significant, you can really take that back to your business and say, hey, this is really working, or hey, we might have to move some budget elsewhere. So with these groups, it's very important to have randomization. You can't have selection bias. I want my top markets in the experimental group and the worst markets in it doesn't work like that. We need to have completely random, very equal groups. And then the second thing you need is obviously a KPI. And what's important is that the KPI doesn't have to be revenue for your business. It can be app downloads, it can be subscriptions, anything that you can measure from this incrementality test. So I think that's important as well. And now I'm going to go into a little bit about the different types of incrementality tests out there in the industry, because there are different ones that leverage these holdout groups. And then I'll go into which ones you can actually use on Amazon and which one Gigi implements out of these three. So first one here is called randomized control trials. So this is actually using the advertising system. So think about a Google, a Meta. They are splitting their users completely randomly for you. So you don't have to touch anything into those two groups and running the test for you. So pretty simple. The good thing is that it eliminates any bias whatsoever. And there's direct measurement on a user level from that advertiser platform. The con here is that you have very little control over who goes in what group. You have no idea what's going on. It's a bit of a black box, I'd say. And there's obviously a potential loss of revenue because a huge group is not seeing it and the other group is, so that can be a little wary. And it can also create geographic imbalances, which is important when you're selling maybe a winter jacket. You know, all of the Florida people can be in the experimental group, and all of the the colder states can be in the control groups. That might be a little bit of a tricky situation for you. So you have no kind of control over that. The second here is geolift testing. So this is based on high quality geographic and household data. And the geos are split into control and experimental groups. And this one's quite interesting because it leverages designated market areas, which are a little bit bigger than a zip code, but smaller than a state. There's 210 across the United States. And you basically run a model and you would be able to see how many of, let's say, half of the 210, so 105 are in your experimental, 105 are in your control, or it can be any kind of balance. But you'll have very high visibility into which states are in your control group and which ones are in your experimental group. So that's a big positive. And there's also no user level data required for this type of test. The cons, again, are potential loss of revenue because you are, again, holding out half of the country, so it can be a little bit scary. There are less granular insights as it's at a geographic level. And then there are some longer test times and higher budgets needed for this to be statistically significant. The last one is very interesting, and it came out in the last 10-ish years, I'd say. But Google definitely uses this one, and I think it's great because there's actually no lost budget anything or any money wasted. Why? Because the advertising system basically will track on an auction basis which user did see the ad and therefore you won the auction, versus when you lost the auction, that user did not see the ad, so they're put into the control group. And so it is just continuously counting these, like this, I guess, who won and lost the auction, and then creating those groups as the ad is running. So again, you're not losing any revenue, but it does, the con here is that Google has to implement this and put a lot of time and effort into putting this into their platform. But it is a very interesting way to measure incrementality as well.
It's interesting and questions, comments put into the chat or the Q&A as we keep moving, but the seasonality. So I used to sell ceiling fans online.
Oh, yes.
And it was always that idea of like, we want to do a promo, but we want to focus on this market where it's hotter than the rest of the country. How do we do that? We never knew. We had these hunches, assumptions, but it was very gray all the time what we were investing and what we were actually getting on return. So to see this is fascinating and exciting, especially for
awesome.
seasonality items. I mean, amazing.
Yeah. And that's why you bring up a good point is, a lot of people ask, when is the right time to run an incrementality test as well? Because you have a lot of seasonality. I'm sure the summer is crazy for most of the country, etc. So when it comes to when to run these type of tests, definitely when it's your most normal period of time, I'd say, which is hard for businesses to do sometimes. But that's when you definitely get the best result.
Very cool. Let's see. We have a question here. When is the best time to run an incrementality test and how long, especially for geolift testing?
Perfect. Yeah. So again, I'm going to go into geolift a lot more because that's the one that we focus on. So great. But so again, so let's start with how long. I would say minimum 30 days, And 60 days is very ideal. 60 days is an ideal time frame to really measure if this test was working. And we at Gigi focus on streaming TV ads. So ideally, you don't have streaming TV ads running before the test. So it's a very clean test period. And then you're running that streaming TV ad when it's kind of business as usual. So definitely not a Q4, selling lots of Christmas and that time period, but more of like a business as usual 60 days. That would be ideal. So you're running that new type of ad unit, and you can really measure that incremental lift. But if you are running, for instance, maybe like an always on streaming TV campaign, then we could also do kind of did the removing DMAs actually create a decrease? So we're kind of doing the reverse and seeing if it removed any sales if we remove those DMAs from the campaign. That's a good question.
Interesting. 60 days.
Yes, that's ideal.
The average ideal. Cool. Yeah, great question. Keep them coming.
Yeah. So geo-based testing. So we're focused on the Amazon ecosystem, and geo-based testing is really the only one right now that fits with Amazon. They haven't created their own, and there's also some restrictions on how you can remove certain groups, but geo-based testing is really the best fit for Amazon ecosystem. And there's a few different reasons as well. Amazon provides very rich zip code level total sales data from Seller Central and Vendor Central. So if you're selling on Amazon, you get all of that data. It's readily available, and we can use that in our models in conjunction with your first party data, which is also very rich. That should be in this model as well to make it better and more accurate, to create those DMA level groupings. So having the data is very important. So having that readily available from Amazon is incredible. We can easily negate DMAs from all the DSP campaigns, and I'll go into a little bit on the next slide of how to do that. Then there's a high degree of control with the experiment and control group makeup. And yeah, the data is easily available. So what is critical for that high quality geo-based test? Let's say you want to run one now, and what do you need? So again, data. Great data inputs will create amazing data outputs. So the Amazon total sales data, that'll be easy. 1P sales data, it's easy with the 1P Gigi platform. We created a really, really easy way to integrate first party data into our platform to leverage these type of tests. And then third-party data, this is an interesting one. So we use household data as well. So knowing how many for streaming TV, how many households are in each DMA, how many people are watching TV in each DMA. That's very, very important for this type of test. So we input that into our model. Another very interesting point.
Brand, just to clarify, a brand could put their first-party data into the Gigi system without giving it to Amazon Marketing Cloud, correct? Because I know AMC is also wanting more brands to put in their 1P data, but this you could actually just keep it housed within Gigi.
So this is an amazing question. Thank you for asking. We've built this incredible platform where we actually use AWS clean rooms. So it's your clean room. No one can touch it. It's housed by you. You control the entire privacy of it. And we directly hash it and encrypt the data when we want to collaborate with it and use it inside Gigi. So we'll spin up the clean room for you, no cost. We'll just have to collaborate that data. It's all very privacy friendly and quite easy to set up. And then we can leverage, oh, wow.
Oh, I mean, look at the excitement.
Me talking about data, that's my life. And so we can collaborate that data and very easily use it for this model. So that's what we have built over the past year. And it's a very exciting use case for brands because they've always said it's very hard to collaborate data and the privacy thresholds and things like that. So we've made that very simple.
That's awesome because that's a very hot topic. I mean, it was for me personally working as a brand and then hearing from brands in our community that they're hesitant. Obviously, that's gold. That's a lot of information of their brand that they want to make sure is being properly housed and used for them. So very cool. One question we still have before we keep moving here is the geo targeted based on the user account address, shipping address, or actual current location?
Very good question. So that is
Mm-hmm.
based on, sorry, I'm trying to think. It's based on the total sales data from Amazon. It's shipping. It's their shipping address. Yeah.
Shipping.
Yeah. And then the 1P data sales can come from whatever you choose. So it could be shipping, it could be their, contact information, whatever you choose to collaborate with. Again, totally, privacy friendly and hashed.
Mhm.
But the Amazon is the shipping address.
Awesome.
Good question. Tested my knowledge. Um, all right. So the second thing for a very, very high quality geo-based test is making sure that your tool provider or whoever you're working with has a very robust DMA model. So the DMA model is getting all those inputs with all that data sources and creating that balanced group for experimental and control. It's so critical to have a very, very equal group. There's so many different DMAs across the United States, and LA and New York are huge, so you have to make sure if they're both in the experimental group, your control group is going to have a very equally weighted, um, uh, DMAs available to offset that massive possible sales or households within those. So I'll go a little bit deeper into this in the next slides. But then the last thing is the statistical analysis model, super important. So just ensuring that your tool provider or whoever you're working with has a very sophisticated statistical analysis model. We use a specific model called difference of differences, but just making sure that you know that they're running a specific model and you can see the output and everything is super, super transparent. That's very important. All right, so going to a little bit about how we've built our approach to incrementality testing with streaming TV ads. So the DMA curation engine, we've actually built out that model ourselves. So we are adding all of those inputs. Again, we've built that 1P data on-ramp, that Gigi 1P platform. And then we've also created a tool for automation for the DMA exclusion. If you've ever, during our beta phase, we didn't have this tool available. So I had to input 107 DMAs one by one for 5 different line items. So 5 times 107, one by one. It was very painful. There's no copy and paste to do this in the DSP.
Ooh.
So going with the tool provider, do them with the DSP API saves a lot of time and effort. And then lastly, that machine learning powered incrementality measurement. So this is kind of what we've built into our system. But what I think is even cooler with the way that we approach this is our DMA curation engine, is that we really want to adhere to the advertiser's risk tolerance. These experiments are a little bit, they can be a little scary. You're scared to hold out half the United States. But we want to make sure that the advertiser is comfortable with the experiment and how it's going to move forward. So what we kind of ask them is, hey, do you want to include 50% of your total sales into the experimental group, or would you like to include 60% into your experimental group and hold out 40%? So you're making sure a little bit more are seeing the ad, and you can feel a little bit more comfortable about running this type of test. And we also do the same question with households. Do you want a little bit more, a little bit less? And what I think is really cool is that we actually get a little bit more granular to DMA specificity. So if LA and New York are your biggest markets and you're saying, I'm not going to run an incrementality test if LA and New York can't see my streaming TV ad, no problem. We can input that into our model. We'll make sure that LA and New York are in the experimental group. But in the model, once it's inputted, it'll rebalance, again, both groups and ensure that they are completely balanced. If your parameters are too restrictive, obviously the model will say, oh, we can't do that. It's not going to provide a great test. That's okay. We'll go back to, kind of talking about it, but we just want to make sure that everything is aligned to your expectations and you feel comfortable with an experiment like this. And lastly, if you are promoting a very specific ASIN or SKU or product in your streaming TV ad, we can definitely hone in on that ASIN and only see that lift on that one ASIN versus your entire portfolio. So I think that's another incredible factor. In the bottom here, you'll see an example kind of overall output. So you can just see control, experimental. So you'll see how many DMAs are in the control group, how many experimental. So this client wanted 50-50 for pretty much everything. So you can see a breakdown of their Amazon total sales, their Shopify total sales, and their combined sales, as well as all the households. So just again, being very transparent about the test, I think is very important. And then you can even see, we can share the entire list of DMAs. You can see Los Angeles and New York were included in the experimental group and how much of their sales came from those two groups. So you can see it's a huge number, 8% and almost 7% are coming from LA and New York. So they did want to feel more comfortable knowing that these two DMAs are going to be included in the people who are seeing the ad. All right, so results, the media part of an experimental test. What can you actually look for in terms of results? So of course, the ROIs. So now we understand what is an experimental group, what is a holdout group, and so you want to know how many more sales came from the experimental group versus the control group during that test period. And so here's an example of an output. We saw with this advertiser, there was actually a 23K lift in sales. And since we have that 1P data, we can get really granular with insights, which is amazing. So their 1P was Shopify. So we saw that there was actually a 13K lift coming from Shopify. And this was a bigger lift from Shopify versus Amazon, there was 10K. But it was basically saying that if they turned off their streaming TV ads, the outcome would be a decrease of 1.5% in their revenue. So that's a big difference. So they know that, okay, streaming TV ads are actually doing something for my business. And they saw an incremental ROAS of 1.17. And we can know that 56% of that 23K lift came from Shopify. So it really did something for their D2C website. Then we can get a little bit more nerdy. We can get very granular. Again, transparency is key. And so if you're with a tool provider, if you want to go with us, making sure that you know, fully transparent, this is the model we're using. These are all the different inputs and outputs. And this is why it's statistically significant and it can be attributed to the streaming TV sale ads from these sales. So we want to make sure that everything is kind of out there on the table. And then lastly, this is a little bit more granular of daily sales by group. So we can see the experimental group and the control group, when the test started, how it went, and just looking at that difference day by day. And we can actually see that on Shopify and on Amazon. So we can break down, again, since we have both data sources, we can really get granular with those insights. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So now we can open for questions.
It's amazing. Are you able to use Walmart as an opportunity to better understand the sales on that platform?
That's a great question. And actually something I wanted to get into, but I passed over. So I was at a conference yesterday and actually someone told me that there is a way to download Walmart zip code level sales. And so basically we can measure this anywhere where we can get that zip code level sales. So if you can extract that from your Walmart, your Best Buy, wherever, then we can put this into the test, no problem, no questions asked. Another great thing about Gigi is that we actually partner with a company called Stackline. So they're a data provider platform and our measurement company as well. But we use them, we've partnered with them to leverage their third-party data, which they actually survey a panel of millions of Americans across and they have them upload their receipts weekly from retailers. So they upload their receipts from Chewy, from Best Buy, from Walmart, from Target, anywhere where there's online and offline sales happening. And so they have this incredible panel of billions of transactions. And we actually, with our GG1P platform, we collaborate with that data. So we could use that data as well if you're in those stores to use in this test as well. So there's so many different opportunities. And if you have a big presence in these types of stores, very important to try to include in these types of tests.
That is awesome to have access to that data pool with the receipts. I had no idea that that was an option. Very, very cool. Just to be clear, when we're using the term control group and holdout group, it's interchangeable.
Yes, good question. Correct.
Okay. And will there be access to the presentation?
Yeah, I am fine with sharing this. No problem.
Okay, cool. So whoever wants a copy of that too, we can get it in your hands, no problem. Keep the questions, comments coming as we run it out here. The stakeholders, so the brands that you work with that are doing it right, like who is in the room at time of launching
Mm,
something like this? Because this looks, again, digital e-commerce ecosystem, like break down the silos, bring everybody at the table in the beginning so everybody understands the
yeah,
expectations and KPIs, right? So curious, like who does it right and what brand should be thinking of?
that's a great question. I think that every kind of hands-on keyboard or person in charge of the media is always questioned and yeah, questioned about, is this incrementality business? Should I be giving you money to spend on these types of ads? And so they're definitely going to start the conversation. I think those are the people who came to me at first and said, I'm not sure if this is incremental. I need to measure this. So they're going to be starting a conversation. And then I think um, I had a question yesterday is, I have a big data science team and they're always questioning about these tests. So bring them into the conversation. I want to be open. I want to make sure that they're understanding what we're running as well and ask us questions as well, challenge us a little bit. But making sure that everyone's kind of in the loop here. And then I'm sure the CFO finance will love to know that this is being run and understanding that what the outcome is and ensuring that they're going to be knowing that they're running this type of test and that there will be a great, hopefully a great outcome to extend your budget.
Yeah, because I think everybody has heard that, well, when do we have, how do you know? We probably would have gotten those sales anyway. Or how do you know that we wouldn't have
Exactly.
gotten those sales anyway? And
Yeah,
nothing sucks more than like not being able to prove that you know the answer, but you can't prove it with data. And like now you can.
exactly. Yeah.
And that is so
Yeah.
awesome.
I was having so many conversations. It was a Strategy event yesterday in Arizona, and there's just a bunch of brands in a room, and they were just so frustrated that they need more money and they won't give them more money because they don't think it's actually incremental and there's not enough revenue. So they were getting very, very frustrated. So I definitely think this is very helpful for them.
And can you see when an ad is running, let's say on through the TV, desktop versus mobile conversion?
Yes, we can do that. So Amazon can get very granular with insights like that. So we actually try to only show the ads on connected TV just because you have more eyeballs, it's around the house, you're getting full attention versus desktop and mobile, you might be like a little bit distracted or you might not watch the ad. So Gigi, we do prefer to just do that connected TV platform, but we can see if you have all three running, we can actually see did they purchase connected TV via connected, or did they see the ad, connected TV, desktop, or mobile? Yes.
Very cool. Well, Gloria, this is fascinating. What an awesome field to be working in. I mean, talk about cutting edge stuff here. So definitely encourage follow-up conversation with Gloria and the Gigi team. They are obviously awesome at what they do. Things are moving so fast in the retail sector. It's just been unbelievable to watch the last few decades. I mean, it's very cool. So with that, it is a wrap. Thank you all for joining on this lovely Thursday afternoon, and always feel free to reach out. Would love to have a conversation with you. My email is tiffany@wgconnect.com. Hope to see you at another event soon. And Gloria, thank you so much for the expertise in the presentation. Absolutely
Thank you for
awesome.
having me.
Yeah, take care.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.